first left.
Or more specifically, how obsessed she was with it.
I'm gonna eat that
She
real quick.
pulled all-nighters to make some fan
Hope I don't get no
website
fucking
that became
cavities.
popular to the point of the band noticing. Went as far as to learn Korean because screw English translations, and said that despite seeming really crazy, it was proof that she was very dedicated to whatever she did. The admission guy said he approved her. This sounds crazy, but it's really impressive. My friend learned fluent Mandarin solely because she has a huge Chinese boy fetish and now she's getting dong left and right in China. This may not be exactly what you're looking for, but I used to intern in the admissions office. There was a policy that if you didn't bring in ACT scores, you had to take a placement test, not an entrance exam. Just a placement test. Community college. If you did bring in ACT scores and had at least a 12 in each section. For those unfamiliar, highest possible score is 36. Very rare. You could start out in standard classes. Below that you had to take the placement test and potentially take remedial courses. This girl comes in one day and plops down her application and everything. I run through it all and inform her she'll have to take the placement test. But I thought if I brought in my ACT scores I wouldn't have to take the placement test. You don't have to take the placement test if you score a 12 or above in each section. Well, I didn't really look at it. What did I make? Look again to make sure I read it right over all 6. Oh, is that bad? It means you have to take the placement test. Here are the forms you need. I used to be an administrator in an admissions office and would read applications before passing them on to the people who make the actual decisions. My favorites included someone's personal statement that said I think so far outside the box, there is no box. The person that included a copy of their pleasure boat driving license. The Prince of Maths who included a 45-minute DVD of himself solving equations interspersed with dance routines. The guy that submitted his personal statement showing the track changes, including comments such as they can never say no to you and summon the tiger within. And the many people who offered me bribes despite explaining until I was blue in the face that I had no effect on the decision. And also it was illegal. The Prince of Maths who included a 45 minutes DVD
I think my house is only gonna have
solving
2
equations
floors.
interspersed with dance routines. Hep, that might be YouTube gold. I worked at a university that did not require admissions essays unless they were specifically asked for. This meant you were waitlisted, for example, or something worrying stood out on your application. The rest of the essays were only read by the data entry crew. One student had an extremely large amount of absences in his high school career and was asked to explain why. The student said she had an intense fear of worms, and because she walked to school, was unable to attend when it had recently rained, as the sidewalks would be covered in worms. It is an unusual explanation.
Okay, so the rooms are going to be the last thing. The last thing we
As
work
an
on.
admission
I'm just trying to get
I see a lot of dumb
the shell.
I get more frustrated with dumb emails asking questions that are easily answered on the website. Do you have a nursing program number? No, we don't. But the essays that most people are referencing here are not dumb but memorable, which are the ones that get you accepted. Compelling essays, even about complex theft, cilantro, beans, arrests. Once I read an essay about a student's arrest, the actual arrest.
I wonder if people can see my head like
that get acceptance
float and shit.
Do you realize how many thousands of
and
essays
I mean like
we
people
read
in the
each
game.
year? If it sticks out, we'll advocate for you when it comes to committee time. I processed applications for a grad school admissions office when I first started working at my university, and until a few years ago a lot of paper application materials were still being mailed in, so I opened some doozies. 1. Math PhD. Applicant's essay literally said I like math in red crayon. I think he figured his 4.0
What the fuck is that? What's he dragging?
Quant score was all he needed. He didn't get in. 2. International applicants sent in a photo of them conducting a military band in a chicken suit. I have no clue why. It went up on the wall of WTF in our office. 3. My favorite. A disturbed, paranoid woman applied to PhD in psychology in person by coming to the admissions office and hand filling out one of the rare few paper applications we still had lying around. Then promptly pulled a letter from a recommender form in her pocket that was on a folded up piece of paper.
Oh yeah, I was gonna
not in a sealed envelope
work on
or
this
anything.
part.
We explained to her it's customary for such documents to be in a sealed envelope with a signature across the seal to show it hasn't been interfered with by the applicant.
Let me see what happens.
She demanded an envelope, which she shoved the letter in, licked, sealed, then wrote her name across the seam. She came by a handful of times after that to hand deliver documents for her application as she didn't trust the US Postal Service and said it would deliberately lose her letters
If that's the
because
case, I
the
have to delete the
government
whole
doesn't
floor.
want people of her race to get higher
Yikes.
education. My favorite was when a letter of recommendation arrived.
Actually, let me find another way.
This time in the mail,
I hope
was
there's
sealed
another way to
envelope
fix that.
sent by the recommender himself. It said, and I quote, "The only way X should be admitted to the graduate program in psychology is as a patient." The recommender was a pastor, and when she finally received her inevitable rejection from the psych program, she mailed the graduate school an itemized bill
I'm gonna
for her
try.
application and
I'm gonna
gray
lower
fees,
this part instead
gas
of
for
like
all her trips to the
deleting
university,
everything else.
and
Okay, please go down.
for things
Okay.
she never mailed us through the racist USPS. Because she wanted us to reimburse
Either way, it's
her.
gonna take like some time to fix
The
it.
application asked about residency status, that is, international, US citizen, permanent resident. The applicant checked Visa and wrote in MasterCard next
What the fuck
to
is
it.
that?
They knew what they were doing.
Okay.
The reasons that I have for wishing to go to Harvard are several. I feel that Harvard can give me a better background and a better liberal education than any other university. I have always wanted to go there, as I have felt that it is not just another college, but is a university with something definite to offer. Then too, I would like to go to the same college as my father. To be a Harvard man is an enviable distinction, and one that I sincerely hope I shall attain. The 23rd of April, 1935. John F. Kennedy. My friend wrote one about how he invented penicillin. He got accepted. Crap, I should write one about how I invented MRSA.
Please pull down.
Qualifications or certifications. I'm ordained
Okay.
and can marry people in Minnesota. Turns out he wasn't
Actually,
freaking
no.
with us. Seen a few years back when I was still working for
Because
admissions.
no, that's fine. That's fine.
I got
Now I
into
can add
my
the windows.
selective college based on my essay and ACT score because my HS grades were crap. Anyway, my essay was called Romancing the Secretary, and it was about all the school secretaries I knew growing up and going through school. I was a weird kid with a host of issues, so I spent a lot of time in the school offices, getting to know the secretaries. They were lovely women who got to know me and protected me from bullies and some of the teachers who hated me. Whenever I couldn't deal with class or was having a bad time, I'd go see the secretaries and they'd cheer me up,
That is
excuse
so
me from
sad.
class, and make me feel like a
Kids
valued
really be
human
mean.
being instead of like a worthless piece of crap. I didn't really have friends in high school, but I had the secretaries
honestly.
and also the janitors, and they protected me and kept me sane. They were the only people to ever acknowledge my birthdays or even sign my e-books. I met
I feel like
the
this
guy
looks
who
better.
read my essay and he said it made him cry, cause he was the weird kid once. 2. He said he put my application on the top
I
of
just
the
wish
stack and knew
that
that I had to go to
that
that college
black line
because he
wouldn't,
knew I would
like,
find my people there.
glitch
and
out,
sure
you know?
enough I did.
It looks so much better if it
My
just stayed
essay
there.
was so awful that my principal
well.
got mad at me for disrespecting the school. You have to post it now. I had a student who never had their application matched up with their other materials, test scores, transcripts, etc., because the social security numbers didn't match. That's because their mother had filled out the application and written in her SSN instead. I work in admissions at an online college. We work in a physical office, and you'd
I don't know how
better
I feel
believe
about
we
this.
get plenty of crazy things
Actually, never mind,
funneling
that's
through.
cool.
One of
I'm gonna
my
put a block
favorites
there,
was
it's
an
blocking me.
application we received for a 27-ish-year-old student who was applying for a graduate degree. She had worked in her field for several years with a bachelor's. A few weeks after receiving this application, we started getting
My God,
calls from her
please,
mother
please pick the
demanding
fucking block.
day-to-day progress reports on the status of the
Okay.
application. Helicopter parents are crazy. We also get plenty of people who opt to write things such as, "Is this really necessary?" And I don't have time for this with my busy work schedule, where they are supposed to attach a resume. Needless to say, if you don't have time to update your
I feel
own
like
resume, you probably
this would look
don't
good
have
with a
time
design
to
on
take
there.
on a full
You know,
college workload.
that blank space.
The writing
But I think that would
prompt
be
for my
a
top choice college when I applied was, "What would you do with
a
an
last-minute
industrial-sized jar of mustard?" One of my high school friends wrote about how corrupted the UC admissions office
Okay, so I think
is.
I'm done
It
with
was
the
hilarious, but the
exterior.
arguments he made were actually fair and thought-provoking. He got into
Now I'm
Berkeley.
gonna work on the interior.
I got accepted into Cornell University by writing an essay about how much I hate cilantro. Dang, you must really hate cilantro. I apparently dropped several curse words in a scholarship essay. The award covered about 50% of tuition every semester. I was accepted and was later told while some of the reviewers were offended.
ASMR.
We appreciated your honesty. Always
Just kidding.
proofread. Y'all. I definitely online submitted an essay to a prof where I forgot to change the file name from duckthusballcraplanet.doc.
I wonder how I'm gonna make a garage.
My sister wrote her MIT essay about how she games a large department store's pricing inconsistencies to turn a profit, buy on sale, return at regular price, etc. She had a pretty complicated system going. She essentially wrote about how she steals from department stores. She got in. She also discussed the ethics of it, and at the time we were pretty poor, but yet. For my essay for the University of Chicago, I explained that I really didn't feel like writing an essay about anything they asked me to write about, and so I was just going to write short answers instead. I then wrote really sarcastic answers to each of them.
Actually, no.
Didn't even answer
I think this will look just.
I got
that's
it.
fine.
That's genius.
How it
I
is.
could see how they would love it though if it were well done. Basically, as long as you're a good writer and it's well done, you can do whatever. But it's a big risk. And I'm not that clever or skilled of a writer, so I've been sticking to the prompts and playing it safe. Let's see where I get in. I go to Rice and my entire Common App essay was about Lisa Simpson.
Lisa Simpson.
Married men of Reddit. What was that dumb thing you did during your dating phase that you can't believe your wife ended up overlooking?
Okay,
I get
this looks
very
fine.
nervous around women that are into me, and especially when I know she's watching me do something. Even something trivial. On an early date, we went to the local shop to pick up some things for a picnic, including some gum. I was thinking really hard and aware that I was being watched. I had this. Money on the counter. Gum in your mouth. Money on the counter. Gum in your mouth. Easy. Suffice to say, when I put the gum on the counter and the €2 coin in my mouth, the cashier was baffled and my girlfriend, now wife, was crying with laughter. Turned her down when she suggested we go on a date.
Alright, this looks
I'm
fine.
super awkward. I was working for Starbucks.
I feel like
she was a
I
regular
want this
customer.
part to be
I was new in town and noticed her a couple times.
I don't know.
She was a
I don't know
regular
what I want it to
customer
be.
and we got to some small talk, chatting about places to eat. She said there's an amazing taco place down the road.
Maybe part
we
of a
should go
room or something.
sometime. I misheard her, thinking she said you should go sometime.
Like, I'll probably knock this
I
window
replied
out and
with,
make it
I'll
a room.
definitely check it out. I handed her
But
a
I wanna
drink and
work
she left
downstairs
very
first.
awkwardly. She was back in the next day and, against all
I guess we
odds,
start with the living
I was
room.
able to clear up the misunderstanding and I wrote my number
The last
on
thing
her
I'm gonna do
Starbucks
is
cup.
do the
We
backyard.
went to that taco place for our first date and she was right. It was amazing. 3 years married and 2 kids later. Really glad she saw through my awkwardness.
The garage is just gonna be
I
this
forgot her
one
name
long
once when introducing her to a friend. This was maybe a month into our relationship. I was all like, hey, and by the way, this is my girlfriend. I have ADD, and every now and then my brain pulls a stunt like this. My mom was the same. As kids, we'd get called by the name of one of our dogs now and then. I thought it was hilarious. My sister not so much. Not my story, but my parents. Some backstory. My dad has a brother who's only a couple
So
years
I'm
older.
gonna connect the
Growing
kitchen
up, they'd commonly try to steal food off each
to
other's
the-
plates just to be buttholes to each other.
to the driveway
This was
or the
remedied by
garage.
plate guarding and defensive maneuvers with utensils if hands got too close. On my parents' first date, my mom reached for something to try off my dad's plate and he instinctively
The lag.
stabbed
Why
her
is it
hand
lagging?
with his fork. Drew blood and everything. He was obviously mortified. Glad my mom was crazy enough to keep dating, marry, and procreate with a fork stabber. On our second date, I arrived 1 age late. When I went to greet her with a little hug. Yep, that's how we greet
Who the
people around
fuck are
here.
you?
I accidentally knocked her phone off her hand. It hit the ground and cracked the screen, but I wasn't sure if it was already cracked. I apologized.
guess.
She said it was okay and
I'll
that
make
the
this
screen
lower.
was already like that before. Almost a year later, she confessed that I actually broke her
And I
phone
want this
that
to be
day.
bigger.
She had just gotten it from her mom. All phones she ever had were second-hand, very simple ones, and she
Ew, it
couldn't
looks
afford
ugly.
a new one at the time, but still she lied and kept using the broken phone so I wouldn't feel bad. My heart sank. We've been married for 2 years now and I've given her a
Okay.
brand new flagship phone every year ever since. True consumerist love, sent from my iPhone 11. Wife
True
was a devout
consumerist
animal
love.
lover and activist. Planned proposal at a fancy Tokyo restaurant that only takes 3 tables a night and has 11
I'm gonna add a door
courses,
here.
which was filled with all sorts of innovative things, so you're never quite sure what's coming next. In between one of the courses, the chef brings out a cute little glass bowl for us to play with some squid. The chef informs us these are firefly squid that's local to the bay. My wife is delighted and practically named them. 2 courses later they reappeared
I'm going
as
to
entrees,
delete
floating
the
on
wall
a glass
here,
plate lit up from below and arranged to look like they're swimming. She still said yes, but have never let me forgot that I took her on literally the worst dining experience she had, and I had paid the most ever for. Played weird
I'm gonna expand this wall
non-stop for a 6-hour car trip to the beach. She didn't ditch me, but haven't been allowed to play Weird Al in her presence for the past 24 years. Got tickets to see him this year on
I'm
our
trying to
anniversary
make
and
this
knew
not
better
look
than to ask her
so
to join
ugly.
me, so I took a couple of my kids that appreciate the finer things in life.
If you don't go somewhere,
Best
damn.
anniversary gift ever. Great show. Soon to be wife here. When we first met, it was during an introduction class or something like that.
You're
He kept
crazy.
kissing the teacher's butt and talking too much and just being kind of a show-off. I wanted to punch him in the face. Come to find out he's in almost all my classes, and for lunch a couple of girls and I decided to go to McDonald's. He invited himself. I was
He's still telling me to look.
Into our relationship, he confessed that he saw me and was intrigued and wanted to get to know me, so he did everything to get my attention. He's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm surprised he managed to actually get my attention. We've been together for 10 years, getting married on the 23rd of September.
He's here.
On my first date with my wife, we got to talking about tattoos. I have a rule that if I have an idea for a tattoo,
I'm
I
trying to
sit
build
on
my
it for a while
mansion
to
in
see
peace.
if I really would still want
Leave me
it.
alone.
I mentioned this to her and explain how glad I am that I do this, because otherwise I'd be covered in Tool, the band, tattoos,
Don't rob
or some
me,
other dumb
please.
crap. She
I'm
rolled
innocent.
up her sleeve to show me that she had the
I'll give
lyrics
you
to
all the
one
money.
of their songs tattooed across her arm.
I'll give you money if you don't
Well,
rob
you
me.
did tell her you liked the band
But I
and
don't wanna
wanted to
work.
tattoo them on your body at some
I'm busy.
point. That's way better than having to show your Tool lyric tattoo to someone who doesn't even know the band. 5 years ago, after dating for 2 weeks, I accepted a job offer on another continent. I told her we didn't know each other well enough for me to pass up an opportunity like that, and if it was meant to be, it would work itself out. Well, it was meant to be, and we got married this spring. We had a couple great dates and things were looking promising. Then I got super busy at work and didn't contact her for about 3.5 weeks without giving her a heads up.
Yo.
She decided to move during this time.
Oh, that's what he
After
wanted me to look
things
at?
calmed down at work,
Never
I
mind, that shit
texted her
good.
again. We worked things long distance and finally got married. She reminds me that I didn't ask her out again for a very long time, every few months. My husband kept calling me by the name of his previous girlfriend on our first date. I finally told him to give her a call because they clearly had unfinished business to talk about. He did, and she reminded him why he was happy to have her out of his life. And he never called me by her name again. 40 years later, and it seems to have worked out in my favor. Nicely handled.
So
my husband broke my thumb one night when we were slightly tipsy. Horseplay got too rough, and I think drunk memory.
I would feel so disrespected.
We both
I don't know
had the
why.
pop and I went to text.
Like being called someone else's
Holy
name.
crap. That must
Especially
have
if I'm on a
been
date
one
with
heck
you.
of an awkward night.
Yikes.
Not the married man, but on probably our 3rd or 4th date, my man mixed our soups. I got a watermelon gazpacho, a cold soup, and he got a seafood bisque. I am a sharer, so we both tasted and didn't love mine, but we loved his. After the tasting, he boldly yet nervously states mine is so great. I got this while pouring our 2 soups into one.
I actually have an idea.
It was the worst lukewarm thing I've ever tasted. 5 years later and we've never mixed soups again. Too risky. This would make me believe my date was some sort of psychopath.
I was thinking
There's no
of
reason that even 2
having the
soups of similar
backyard
theme should be mixed. It defeats the entire
being connected
purpose
to
of
the
ordering
kitchen,
specific soup.
like in other houses.
Accidentally set her hair on fire with a match while lighting a cigarette. Not good. We are still married 29 years later. I don't smoke anymore. Reminds me of the story my grandpa told me on his first date with my grandma. He wanted to see exactly how flammable hairspray was. She wears a lot, and he held up a match near her hair. She had a bit of hair missing for a while.
Yes,
I
am a dog.
100%. His Dunbar's antics have drastically declined though.
See dogga.
Not me. But my first door neighbor's story, I didn't know their story until
on,
one day another
stretch.
friend told me what happened, and she confirmed it. She was at a party and caught him looking at her every now and then. She kinda liked him, so she decided to make the first move. She took a few shots for courage and went in. As time passed by, she continued to drink while talking to him and got pee drunk.
Go up.
Like not being able to walk drunk. He was a type of guy that didn't drink that much at all and presumed she can drink a lot. But when she stood up from couch after a few hours, the alcohol swept her to the ground. So as a gentleman, he offered to carry her home.
The kitchen don't need to
we
be
were
this
late
big.
teens. No car,
They really
no
don't.
money. So he started piggyback her home. That was like 30-45 minutes walk. Like normal sober walk.
Maybe
he managed to carry her on his back about
okay,
500
I'll put a
meters from her
pantry.
home and stopped to take
I'll
a
make a
break
pantry,
for a
like a mini
moment.
pantry.
His back hurt him AF, so he decided to carry her in his arms.
Like I'll split
few
this.
steps away, and he notices very
I'll put
unpleasant
a
smell.
block right
Since
here.
he isn't from our parts and it was rural area, he asked, barely conscious, how
Honestly,
was
at this
his
point, I'm
ass
just
fitting
winging
stick?
it.
She just mumbled, "I shat my pants," then proceeded to pass out in his arms, only coming back to mumble, "Frick, sorry,"
I don't think I
and
need a
passing
pantry.
out again. So what guy does? He brings her home and lies her on floor, since he was afraid of messing up her bed or couch, and left home. But, few moments after he comes back, wakes her up and asks would she mind if he helped her shower, since she can't sleep. 8HL shut up, mostly because it's not hygienic, safe, and her whole house and everything would smell. She agreed, and after he bathed her, she asked him to sleep in her bed, in case she needed him. So one time I asked Guy how the frick did he got over that. He said they clicked at the first glance, and he just felt that he needs to take care of her because he took responsibility